Cornell University is a leader in many fields. It routinely ranks as a top 10 national university, but this year, the school ranked number 1 in a different aspect. In 2018, according to the Department of Education, Cornell had the highest number of reported sexual assaults out of every university and college in New York. At 199, the university had almost twice the number of reports than New York University, which was second on the list. Chantel Cleary is the director of the Title IX office at Cornell. This is the office that's responsible for collecting data and responding to campus sexual assault.
The other primary function of the office is response to incidents involving sexual or related misconduct or other forms of sex discrimination. So for example, if a member of our community either engages in sexual or interpersonal violence or experiences sexual or interpersonal violence, my office is the office that responds to ensure that folks who've experienced violence are supported, that they're aware of their rights and all of the resources available to them.
Students who come to the Title IX office can decide to report their assault and whether or not they want to go forward with a formal complaint. A complaint could initiate either a criminal or administrative investigation. In the 2016-2017 academic year, there were 300 reports of sexual assault, but just 37 complaints.
Can you explain this disparity? Why is there such a big difference between the amount of filed complaints and the reports?
We know as a culture that sexual assault particularly is the most underreported crime in our culture. It's also one of the most underprosecuted in the criminal justice system. And when there are prosecutions, it is the one that prosecution is most often unsuccessful. And folks know that, right? So I think that that's a barrier, and I think that there's room for improvement. I also think the same is true on college campuses. We can all do better.
Outside of college campuses in Tompkins County, victims of sexual violence may not be aware of the resources or services that are available to them. The Advocacy Center, which provides a vast range of support for survivors, including a 24-hour hotline. Christy Taylor is the educational director at the center.
So we run a 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week crisis hotline. It's staffed by trained advocates and trained volunteers who go through extensive training to be able to support callers. It is a great resource for people because literally when we say it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we mean that. There is always somebody who is staffing that hotline.
Taylor says people call the hotline in a variety of situations.
Anybody who's been impacted by these forms of violence, and it's a place where people can talk. So if it's 2 a.m. and that's the moment where somebody has the ability to pick up the phone and dial the phone number and call, somebody's going to be there. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions about a hotline is that somebody has to be at a very high level, really in danger or in active crisis to call. And we always try to kind of tamp that down a little bit.
During the hearings for Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who was accused of sexual assault by Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, calls to the National Sexual Assault Crisis Hotline went up over 200%.
I think folks are triggered by certain things that they're hearing. It makes them think about their own experiences and reflect on their own experiences. And sometimes folks are inspired. I've heard from folks who have reported in the aftermath of the Kavanaugh hearings, for example, that watching those hearings inspired them to break a silence that they had been keeping for a really long time.
She also points out that the spike in demands for services during the Kavanaugh case is not an isolated trend.
The National Hotline through RAIN sends us reports every 3 months of how many callers they sent to us, and we actually saw a marked increase in calls of October of last year through current, which is exactly when Me Too started coming. So definitely Me Too. The Brock Turner case brought things up for folks. And then when you start seeing cases like the USA Gymnastics with Larry Nassar and even things within the Catholic Church.
She added, the use of social media can provide additional support and encourage survivors to speak out or seek help.
I think one of the interesting pieces is people becoming aware that there is help, that there is services, and there are people who believe them and will believe them, that becomes really powerful. But one of the things that you see with it is that people are starting to build these networks informally that can be really powerful for them to also be encouraged to talk to somebody and or know that whether it's today, tomorrow, or a year from now, that somebody will be there to listen and is willing to help.
Right.